face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
A very warm welcome to Pulse of Africa News. Tonight, we dive into the story shaping our continent with voices that inspire and moments that move us. I'm Magdalite Naga, and I'm thrilled you're here with us. Let's start with here in Ethiopia. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed arrived in Djibouti this morning, where he was warmly received by President Ismail Omar Guelleh. The two leaders held high-level discussions on regional geopolitical developments, peace and security in the Horn of Africa, and ways to further strengthen bilateral relations. In a social media post, Prime Minister Abiy highlighted that particular emphasis was placed on enhancing cooperation in trade, logistics, and development. Our discussions focused on geopolitical dynamics, regional peace and security, and strengthening bilateral cooperations, particularly in trade, logistics, and development, reaffirming our shared commitment to stability, economic integration, and mutual prosperity, the Prime Minister noted. While still focusing on Ethiopia, India's ambassador to Ethiopia, Anil Kumar Rai, has lauded Ethiopia's Corridor Development Project and Green Legacy Initiative as global benchmarks, describing Addis Ababa as a world-leading example of visionary urban transformation and sustainable development. Speaking on Ethiopia's ongoing urban renewal efforts, Ambassador Rai said the Corridor Development Project stands as a testament to strong political will, forward-looking vision, meticulous planning, and effective execution, transforming Addis Ababa into a modern, people-centered capital.
The Corridor Development Project is a reflection of a strong determination, vision, planning, and execution. If you go around the world, you will find that Ethiopia, particularly Addis Ababa, excels in this field. This country has done tremendously well when it comes to rejuvenating its urban centers. We are very happy and to see that Ethiopia has emerged, particularly Addis Ababa has emerged as a glowing example of urban planning, where you have good roads, green zones, to capture all the pollutants which are originating from the transport sector. You have walking tracks and cycling track, so that the common people are not faced any inconvenience while commuting. So this is a very good example. The city has emerged.
Ethiopia has launched an ambitious corridor development initiative as a central pillar of its urban transformation strategy, aiming to modernize the city, enhance livability, and make urban centers more attractive for both residents and investors. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and with coordination between federal, regional, and local authorities, the project is being implemented across dozens of cities nationwide, including Addis Ababa, Bahar Dar, Gondar, Jimma, Arba Minch, Hawassa, Walaita Sodo, and Redwa. To date, more than 300 individual projects have been completed in over 60 urban areas, featuring hundreds of kilometers of roads, wide pedestrian walkways, bicycle lanes, street lighting, public plazas, parks, and green spaces. Beyond physical infrastructure, Ethiopia's corridor development is designed to boost economic opportunities, tourism, and environmental sustainability. Ambassador Rai also praised Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative, describing it as an ambitious and historic environmental campaign with visible and lasting impact. According to the ambassador, Ethiopia's leadership in green development has gained global recognition, culminating in the country being selected to host COP 32 in 2027, a milestone he described as a reflection of Ethiopia's growing international standing on climate action.
I would like to thank the leadership of Ethiopia for coming up with such an ambitious program of Green Legacy Initiative. They have already planted or they have spread the seedlings more than 40 billions. So this is a world record that in such a short span of time this has been achieved. And this is also visible on the ground. If you go anywhere in Ethiopia, you will find that there are sites with green vegetation, which is because only of the determination of Green Legacy. This has also been globally recognized, and that has resulted in awarding Ethiopia the opportunity to host the COP32 in 2027.
Let's switch things up, some cultural and related news. The Oxford English Dictionary has added several Nigerian origin words in its latest update, reflecting the growing global influence of the nation's language, culture, and cuisine. The December 2025 update released on the OED website recently features more than 500 new words, phrases, and senses, including internet slang such as DM, brain fart, and chug. Over 1,000 existing entries were also revised, with editors explored the histories of words such as troll, coffee, and snooker. The update includes additions from varieties of English used around the world, including West African English, Maltese English, Japanese English, and South Korean English, with OED editors noting the growing global influence of these words. Among the Nigerian entries are everyday expressions and food items, including Nash, Mami Market, Amala, Moya Moy, Abig, Biko, and Ghana Must Go. The update includes Afrobeats, defined as a style of popular music incorporating elements of West African music and of jazz, soul, and funk. Author and CEO, Head of Pronunciations, Catherine Sangster, said the update marked an important development in how pronunciations were documented across different varieties of English. With this update, we introduce a new model for the transcription of Maltese English pronunciations. This is the 19th word English pronunciation model in our collection. The Oxford English Dictionary expanded its lexicon with 20 Nigerian words and expressions in January 2025 update, highlighting the influence of Nigerian English, Pidgin, and street slang on global vocabulary.
In Ethiopia, more homes and businesses now have access to electricity. Access to power supports education, healthcare, and local businesses. Light changes lives.
In a major boost to the Gambian's growing creative sector, Frening Dunder, founder of Art27 Visual Arts Promotion, has announced plans to establish a permanent art gallery in the country by 2026. A move set to provide a long overdue dedicated space for Gambian and African visual artists to exhibit their work. The proposed gallery aims to become a central hub for contemporary visual arts, cultural exchange, and artistic collaboration, offering artists a professional platform to gain visibility, engage audiences, and develop their careers. Since its establishment in December 2024, Art27 has steadily carved the niche within the local arts landscape through a series of temporary exhibitions held at prominent venues, including African Art Gallery at the Sangambia Beach Hotel, the Art and Castle Exhibition, Alliance Francis Bendrul, as well as selected guest houses and hotels. These initiatives have brought visual art closer to the public while creating opportunities for artists to showcase their creativity beyond conventional spaces. As preparations for the permanent gallery continue, Art27 is expanding its presence both online and offline while appealing to sponsors, donors, and the wider public for support. Once established, the gallery is expected to play a transformative role in the Gambian's cultural ecosystem, serving as a meeting point for exhibitions, creative dialogue, and artistic innovation, while elevating profile of Gambians and African artists on the national and international stage. The Love Island All-Stars Villa has been evacuated with filming postponed due to ongoing wild forest, ITV has said. Set in South Africa, the third series of the ITV spin-off dating showcase was due to premiere on Monday. However, the transformation has been delayed following a production evacuation. In a statement, ITV said further to production evacuation owing to the ongoing wildfires in the area. Our assessment of the location site has concluded that filming will need to be postponed. Health and safety is our greatest priority and will always come first, and therefore the transmission of Love Island All Stars will be delayed until a date to be confirmed. Hosted by Maya Drama, the show follows the same forms as the original ITV dating program. Only the twist is that host former faces return to the villa in a bid to find their match and win the prize pot. The new series stars a number of former contestants, including 2 winners. Moving on to business news. Guzio Tire plans to use Morocco as a new industrial and export base as part of its overseas expansion strategy, targeting closer access to European and North American markets. In a statement, the Chinese tire manufacturer said it will invest nearly $300 million in a production plant in Morocco. The project has received approval from the company's board of directors. The factory will be located in Mohammed V Tanger Tech City, a smart industrial zone in northwest Morocco that already hosts Century Tire, another major Chinese fire producer. Construction is expected to take 2 years, after which the plant will have an annual production capacity of 6 million passenger vehicle tires. The Moroccan site will become Gizu's second overseas production base after its factory in Vietnam. The company said the investment aligns with its internationalized strategy and should allow it to serve new markets in Europe and North America more efficiently. The group expects the Moroccan plant to generate annual revenue of about $182 million, with an average annual profit around $40 million. Mining company Linden Resources has completed early work and established at its Kangwadi rare earth project in Malawi, marking the project's transaction into the construction phase. Key mining equipment has been delivered to the site, including a Komodo 2 dozer, excavators, wheel loaders, dump trucks, and a drill rig. Remaining fleet deliveries, along with equipment assembly and commissioning, are expected to be completed in first quarter 2026. Engineering company Obsido is also advancing construction of the processing plant, with site preparation works across the stockpile area and plant footprint now 95% complete. Development of the mobile workshop building foundation is underway, while administration offices and workers' accommodation camps are expected to become fully operational by the end of February 2026. Construction of the project's fuel farm is also progressing, including the installation of 2 40,000-liter fuel storage tanks to support construction and mining activities. State-owned utility AFCON is also advancing the development of electricity supply infrastructure to serve the mine. And finally, sport news. Ugandan's Jacob Kiplimo claimed his third consecutive title at the World Cross Country Championship, crossing to victory in dominant fashion. Ethiopian's Beharu Aragawi took silver for the third time, while Kenya's Daniel Simu Imbinio completed the podium with a bronze medal. Kiplimo continued his remarkable dominance in distance running at the 2026 World Athletics Cross Country Championships on Saturday, held at Apalache Regional Park in Tallahassee, Florida. His win marks a rare hold streak of world titles, cementing his place among the sport's all-time greats. The 25-year-old crossed the line first in the men's senior 10-kilometer race in 28 minutes and 18 seconds, once again proving untouchable. His victory makes him only the fourth man in history to win 3 consecutive world cross-country titles, joining legends John Nuguni, Paul Targe, and Kananisa Bakala. In an official letter, FECA Foot, chaired by Samuel Eto'o, has sent strong message to the Royal Moroccan Football Federation, FRMF, and its president, Fouzi Lajika. On behalf of the Cameroon delegation and Cameroon's supporters, I would like to extend our respectful greetings and supporting congratulations in a spirit of fair play and mutual consideration, the Cameroon body wrote in its letter. Eto'o further expressed his gratitude for its organization of this Moroccan edition of the Africa Cup of Nations. We also wish to express our deep gratitude for the exemplary quality of the organization of this competition, as well as for the fraternal, warm, and benevolent welcome extended to our team, our delegations, and our supporters by the Moroccan people, emphasized Eto'o. Knocked out by the Atlas Lion in the quarterfinals on Friday, the indomitable Lions leave the competition with an encouraging run, better than the Ivory Coast edition in 2023, where they were stopped in round of 16. Let's take a look at the weather forecast across Africa. That's all for this hour. Before I conclude, I'd like to invite you to watch our weekly program, African Melody, which is coming up next. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome viewers. This is Africa Melody on Pulse of Africa. In our today's episode, we will explore the role of music in African modern history. Stay tuned. In modern African history, music has evolved from an instrument of anti-colonial resistance to a major global cultural export. This transition reflects the continent's journey through independence, urbanization, and digital globalization. The history of African music during the 20th century is the result of complex social, cultural, and musical process. This process must be seen against the backdrops of the continent's continuing attempts to come to terms with the colonial legacy, the challenges and conflicts of the post-colonial present, and the changing place of Africa in the global order. Several key factors shape the broader contours of this history: the growth of cities, the rise of nationalism, the state as promoter and censor, the dominance of state-controlled media during much of the colonial and post-colonial era, and their eventual degradation in the 1990s. The struggles of musicians in the time of economic crisis and falling governments, the world beat boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, and the impact of global culture on African urban youth. How did colonialism impact African music and traditions? The colonial period, 15th to 20th centuries, brought profound changes to African musical practices. European missionaries often actively discouraged traditional music as part of their conservation efforts, viewing indigenous musical expressions as incompatible with Christian worship or Western cultural norms. This suppression threatened the continuity of many musical traditions. Simultaneously, colonizers introduced Western musical elements, instruments, and concepts that were gradually incorporated into the local practice, creating hybrid forms. Despite these pressures, many traditional forms demonstrated remarkable resilience, persisting through adaptation and underground practice. The independence movements of the mid-20th century sparked renewed interest in traditional music as expressions of national identity and cultural pride. This period saw the emergence of new musical genres that deliberately blended traditional elements with imported styles as statements of cultural reclamation and innovation. The colonial legacy continues to influence African music today through these hybrid forms, with many communities have also engaged in efforts to revive and preserve pre-colonial musical practices as part of cultural heritage preservation. During the early 20th century, African musicians began blending indigenous rhythms with Western instruments introduced by missionaries and military bands. High life, Ghana or Nigeria, emerging in the late 19th century, combined Western African melodies with Western brass and jazz, becoming a symbol of independence and urban sophistication. Congolese rumba, Democratic Republic of Congo. In the 1950s, musicians in the Congo adapted Afro-Cuban rumba back into an African context using the guitar and traditional percussion, later evolving into soukous. Anti-apartheid and protest music. In South Africa, artists like Maria Makeba and Hugh Masekela used music to broadcast the struggle against apartheid to the world. The decades following independence saw the rise of genre-defining pioneers who used music for sharp social commentary. Afrobeat, pioneered by Fela Kuti in Nigeria. This genre used rumba music, jazz, and funk with radical political lyrics. Mbalax in Senegal, popularized by Youssou N'Dour. This style fused traditional sabar drumming with Latin, jazz, and rock. Chimurenga in Zimbabwe. Thomas Mafumo adapted the sacred sound of the mbira to electric guitars to inspire the liberation struggle against colonial rule. What makes African music distinct from other musical traditions around the world? African music distinguishes itself through several unique characteristics, most notably its complex polyrhythmic patterns where multiple rhythms occur, simultaneously creating intricate layers that requires precise navigation by musicians and dancers. The call and response structure, which encourages community participation, is another hallmark feature where a leader singers or plays a phrase that is then answered by a chorus or instrumental response. African music is also characterized by its integration with other art forms and its functional role in society, serving specific purposes beyond entertainment such as communication, education, preservation of oral history, religious ceremonies, and marking important life events. Additionally, African music emphasizes timbre and texture, with musicians prioritizing distinctive sound qualities through techniques like bassing membranes, rattles, or vocal manipulations. The tradition of oral transmission has preserved these musical practices through generations without written notations, relying instead on memory and apprenticeship, which has contributed to the rich diversity of styles across the continent. How is traditional African music preserved and taught in contemporary settings? The preservation and teaching of traditional African music in contemporary settings occurs through multiple contemporary approaches. Formal education has increasingly incorporated African music into curricula, with music schools, universities, and conservatories across Africa and internationally offering programs specializing in African musical traditions. These institutions often invite master musicians as guest instructors or artists in residence to provide authentic instruction. Cultural centers and community organizations throughout Africa and in diaspora communities maintain programs dedicated to teaching traditional instruments, songs, and dances to younger generations. Digital preservation efforts have become crucial, with ethnomusicologists, cultural institutions, and community members collaborating to record, document, and archive traditional performances. These recordings serve both as educational resources and historical documentation. Festivals and cultural events provide platforms for traditional musicians to perform and transmit their knowledge, while many master musicians maintain the centuries-old practices of apprenticeship, taking on students who learn through observation, imitation, and guided practice. These diverse approaches help ensure that despite modernization and globalization pressures, traditional African musical knowledge continues to be transmitted to the future generations, adapting to contemporary contexts while maintaining core cultural elements. What role do drums play in African musical traditions? Drums or membrophones hold a central and often sacred position in many African musical traditions, functioning far beyond mere rhythmic accompaniment. In numerous cultures across the continent, drums serve as communication device. The famous talking drums of Western Africa can replicate the tonal patterns of speech, allowing messages to be transmitted over long distances. In many traditions, drum patterns are tied to specific dances, ceremonies, or social functionings, creating a complex vocabulary of rhythms that community members recognize. The drumming techniques developed in Africa, particularly polyrhythmic approaches, have profoundly influenced global percussion practices, especially evident in the musical traditions of the African diaspora in the Americas and Caribbean. What are some important contemporary African music genres and artists gaining international recognition? Contemporary African music has experienced unprecedented global exposure in recent decades, with several genres and artists achieving international acclaim. Afrobeats, or distinct form Fela Kuti Afrobeat, has become a global phenomenon through artists like Burna Boy, whose album Twice as Tall won a Grammy Award, Wizkid, who collaborated with major international artists like Drake and Beyonce, and Tiwa Savage, often referred to as the Queen of Afrobeats. This genre blends West African musical elements with hip-hop, electronic dance music, and R&B. Amapiano, originating from South Africa, has gained worldwide popularity with its distinctive blend of deep house, jazz, and lounge music, characterized by syncopated bass line and piano melodies. Artists like Black Coffee have brought South Africa house music to international audiences, winning Grammy Awards and performing at prestigious venues worldwide. Meanwhile, North African artists like Algerian singer Khalid Said popularized their regional styles globally. The digital revolution has facilitated this international recognition, allowing African artists to distribute their music worldwide without necessarily requiring major label support, while streaming platforms have created unprecedented access to African music for global audience. That's all for today's African Melody. Next, we will meet with another topic. Thank you for watching and goodbye.